urgent meeting about our marriage. I keep replaying those words in my head as if they were spoken out loud between us. Even though you are not here, even though this room is painfully silent, I'm sitting alone, yet I'm talking to you like you're right in front of me, because my thoughts refuse to accept your absence. You should know this already. Every decision I make, every breath I take, somehow circles back to you. This meeting, this so-called urgency, exists only because my heart has been restless without you. I wanted to tell you that marriage, for me, was never about rituals, expectations, or timelines. It was always about you, about the way your silence speaks louder than words, about how your absence can feel heavier than any argument we ever had. I wish you were sitting across from me so I could see your eyes while saying this, but maybe it's easier to be honest when you're not here, when I don't have to hide how deeply this scares me. I'm speaking to you directly now because there are things I never managed to say when you were close. You might think I'm calm, composed, always in control, but the truth is I've been negotiating with my own fears every single day. The idea of a future without you feels like signing a treaty I never agreed to. I wonder if you know how many times I imagined explaining everything to you, why I hesitated, why I stayed silent when I should have fought harder, why I let distance grow between us. This urgent meeting is really me confronting myself, asking whether I was brave enough for the kind of love you deserved. I talk to you in my head because you still listen there, without judgment, without walking away. If you were here, I would tell you that marriage to me is not a promise to be perfect, but a promise to stay when things are messy, when misunderstandings pile up, when love feels heavier than happiness. I would tell you that I never wanted a life where you became a memory instead of a presence. Even now, I'm addressing you like this because my heart still believes you can hear me wherever you are. Maybe this meeting is not about convincing you, but about confessing the truth I've been running from, that I chose you long before I was ready to admit it, and I'm still choosing you even in your absence. So consider this my voice reaching out across the silence, across the space where you should have been sitting. This is not a formal discussion, not a royal decree, not an obligation forced by circumstances. This is me, the prince, speaking as a man who loves you and is finally brave enough to say it clearly. If you ever return, if you ever listen, know that this urgent meeting about our marriage was never about urgency at all. It was about love, waiting patiently for the courage to speak. I keep talking to you even though the space in front of me is empty, because silence feels heavier when I pretend you don't exist. I imagine you sitting across from me, listening the way you always did, quietly, deeply, as if every word mattered. I never needed your replies as much as I needed your presence, yet here I am, forced to speak into nothingness. Maybe this is my way of holding on, of refusing to let distance turn you into a stranger. Every thought I've avoided, every feeling I buried under duty and pride rises now because you are not here to interrupt me, not here to soften my confessions with your smile. You should know that I never struggled with loving you. I struggled with deserving you. From the outside, my life looks ordered, powerful, secure, but inside I have always been negotiating with expectations that were written long before I met you. I wanted to be strong for you, someone you could rely on without fear, yet I often confuse strength with silence. I didn't tell you how much I feared losing myself while trying to become everything the world demanded of me. Now that you're not here, I realize how unfair it was to expect you to understand what I never explained. I speak to you directly because my heart never learned how to let you go politely. It clings stubborn and irrational. to the belief that you still hear me somewhere. I replay our conversations, wondering at which moment I should have chosen honesty over control. If you were here, I would tell you that every delay, every hesitation was never about doubt in you, but doubt in myself. I was afraid that if I promised you a future, I would fail you in it. That fear followed me like a shadow, even when I stood in the brightest rooms. What hurts the most is knowing that you had the courage I lacked. You were ready to face uncertainty with me, while I kept calculating risks like love was a political alliance instead of a shared life. I wish you could see me now, stripped of titles and confidence, speaking to the memory of the woman who knew me better than I knew myself. Maybe this is what honesty looks like when pride finally gets tired. Maybe it takes absence to teach Prince how fragile he actually is. Marriage, in my mind, was never a cage, but I treated it like one because I was scared of responsibility disguised as permanence. I didn't understand that choosing you wasn't losing freedom. It was defining it. If you were here, I would tell you that a life built with you was the only future that ever felt real to me. All other paths looked impressive but hollow, like grand halls echoing with voices that weren't yours. I wonder if you still think of me the way I think of you, without warning, without logic, in moments when the world slows down. I wonder if you know that every plan I make feels incomplete because your absence leaves a gap nothing else fits into. I am talking to you now because this is the only place where I am honest without consequences, where I can admit that love scared me more than loneliness ever did. So hear this, even if only as a thought carried by memory. I never stopped choosing you, even when I acted like I did. This isn't a request or a command. It's a confession spoken too late, but meant sincerely. If you ever stand in front of me again, I won't speak like a prince bound by duty. I'll speak like a man who learned through losing you what commitment truly means. I am speaking to you as if you are here because my heart refuses to accept the empty space between us. The chair in front of me remains untouched, yet my thoughts keep finding you, sitting there quietly, listening the way you always did. I never realized how much courage it took to speak honestly until I was left alone with my own voice. Now every word feels heavier, more real, because there is no distraction, no expression on your face to soften the truth I am finally ready to admit. You may not know this, but I measured my life in responsibilities long before I learned how to measure love. I was taught to plan, to calculate, to protect the future at all costs, even if that meant ignoring the present. When you entered my life, you didn't ask for promises, you asked for presence. I failed to understand that at the time. I thought love could wait, that hearts were patient by default, and that silence was safer than vulnerability. I talk to you now because this distance has stripped me of all excuses. I can no longer hide behind duty or expectations, because none of them sit here with me in this moment. Only you do, in memory and thought, asking the questions I avoided. I wish I had told you how deeply I cared instead of assuming you already knew. I wish I had trusted you with my fears instead of carrying them alone like a burden I was too proud to share. There were nights when I imagined a future with you, and mornings when I convinced myself it was impractical. That contradiction slowly built a wall between us, brick by brick, until even I couldn't see through it. You stood on the other side, waiting, believing, while I stood here, pretending that hesitation was wisdom. Now I understand that love doesn't collapse because of mistakes, it collapses because of unanswered honesty. Marriage was never a question of commitment for me, but a question of worth. I wonder whether I could give you the life you deserved, whether my world would ever allow me to choose freely. Instead of voicing these doubts, I let them turn into distance. If you were here, I would tell you that choosing you was never the risk. I was the risk, and I was afraid you would see my uncertainty and walk away. Even now, I catch myself hoping you can hear me, as if words could travel through regret and reach you wherever you are. I replay your voice, your patience, the way you believed in us when I was still debating with myself. It hurts to realize that you offered me clarity and I responded with confusion disguised as control. So this is me, finally speaking without armor, without titles, without fear of consequence. I don't know if this confession changes anything, but it changes me. If fate ever brings you back into my life, I won't speak in pauses or half-truths. I will tell you plainly that loving you was never my weakness. It was the one truth I kept delaying, and the one I will never deny again. I am still talking to you even now, because silence feels like betrayal when my heart is this full of unsaid words. The space between us has grown into something I never intended, yet here I am, filling it with your name in my thoughts. I imagine you listening, not interrupting, not defending yourself, just absorbing everything the way you always did. Maybe that's why I can finally be honest, because you are not here to be hurt by my hesitation, only to be understood by my truth. I was raised to believe that certainty must come before commitment, that a man should never promise what he cannot fully control. Loving you shattered that belief in ways I didn't expect. You made me realize that some things cannot be mastered, only trusted. Instead of trusting what we had, I kept searching for guarantees, not knowing that love dies slowly in the presence of constant doubt. I see now how my caution must have felt like rejection to you, even when my feelings were real. There were moments when I almost spoke, when your eyes searched my face for reassurance, and I chose restraint over honesty. I told myself I was protecting you from an unstable future, but in reality, I was protecting myself from vulnerability. It's easier to be distant than to risk being fully seen. I regret that I learned this lesson only after you were no longer within reach, when my words have nowhere to land but in memory. I want you to know that every step I took away from you felt heavier than the last. I tried to convince myself that time would fix what silence had broken, but time only magnified the absence. I replay our last conversations, wondering how different things might have been if I had chosen courage over composure. Perhaps you would still be here. Perhaps I would not be speaking to emptiness like this. Marriage was never a trap to me. It was a mirror I wasn't ready to face. It would have forced me to confront my fears, my limitations, my need for control. You were ready to grow together while I was still negotiating with the idea of change. If you were standing here now, I would tell you that my delay was not a lack of love, but a lack of self-trust. Sometimes I wonder if you think I forgot you, if you believe my silence meant indifference. The truth is, you live in every quiet moment I can't escape. You are present in the decisions I make, in the life I imagine, but can't fully enter without you. I speak to you like this because it's the only place where I don't have to pretend that losing you didn't break something inside me. So let this be my confession, spoken into the stillness with no expectations attached. I don't know if these words will ever reach you, but they are real and they are overdue. If destiny ever gives me the chance to stand in front of you again, I won't hide behind fear or formality. I will choose honesty even if it trembles, because loving you taught me that some truths are worth risking everything for.